This conference will now be recorded.
Excellent. So this is our session on glass pricing and glass pricing in FrameReady. That's today's video. There are two different ways to do the glass pricing. There's the old method and the new method. The old one was just using United Inch, and the new method that I'd like to introduce and remind people to use is the light size, pricing by the light size. When you look at the United Inch, a lot of times you may have your glass pricing and FrameReady set up that it's going to be the cost times a markup and even possibly plus a set price, and that's going to generate a retail price for you. However, glass should not be priced the same as mat board, mostly because it comes in more sizes that are available than the mat board does. And the other difference is that with glass, it makes a commitment to the whole piece. You can't just cut a little corner out. Regardless of what any artist might tell you, you can't divide the whole sheet up and cut little chunks out all over it. So if you take a look at the glass pricing here, you'll notice that we have a 32 by 40 on this chart. And what would happen then is if you had a 30 by 40 and you were pricing by the United Inch, it's going to give the customer a $2 discount, even though you have to use the 32 by 40 piece of glass to do it. And the 2 inches of scrap is not reusable, and you have the extra labor of cutting that piece. So that's one of the reasons why we suggest you don't want to price by United Inch pricing. You want to price by the light size. The light size pricing in FrameReady is set up in code tables, and you can have as many code tables as you want, one for each different type of glass that you're pricing. And it's going to give you the 8 by 10, the 9 by 12, the 11 by 14, and you get to determine what those glass sizes are and which ones should stay on your list and which ones should be removed from the list. In here, we've got, just to show you an example, if we took a 16 by 20 light, and let's say the cost of it is $7.40, and you mark it up 3 times, then the retail price on the light size would be $22.20. Whereas on the United Inch side, it may be a different price because you were basing it on a different size of glass. The other thing to take note of is that 16 by 20 is 36 United Inches. However, if you were pricing out a piece of glass that was 8 by 28 for one of those long rectangular pieces, that too is 36 United Inches. And so if you price by the United Inch, the price that's going to come up, the retail price, is going to be $17.06 instead of going down to the size for the light size of 22 by 28. So that's another reason why you want to price by light size, not by United Inch. And it's even worse if you're pricing by square inch. So definitely you want to do light size. When you're taking a look here, this is where you would want to check the pricing. Once you've got your prices set up, a lot of people will go down the column to say 8 by 10, 9 by 12. Yep, the price is going up in steady increments. That makes sense to you. And one of the things that I like to do is down at the bottom of the list, if there is nothing available in over the size of 40 by 60, then you want to put something on there that says that as soon as the price goes, or the size goes over the 40 by 60, the retail price that's going to come up is $9,999, which doesn't matter who's at the cash register, that is going to get their attention to say, let's take a look at acrylic, or let's take a look at a different design, or let's take a look at a different type of glass. So those are some of the things that you can do on the code table. But not only do you want to take a look at your prices just for the conservation reflection control as it goes down the list, each size getting larger and larger, but you also want to take a look and do a cross-check, because there's our conservation reflection control. But if you look at all the different types of glass that you have, and you look at the 36 United Inches, the 16 by 20, as we go down that list, you'll notice that when we get to conservation reflection control, all of a sudden the retail price drops. And you're thinking, whoa, what's going on here? So it's that cross-check of not only checking it at the 8 by 10, the 16 by 20 going up in size, but also comparing it to the other glass types. And one of the things that you might want to do is decide that if this is a glass that you get a really good deal on the cost, the wholesale cost, and if you mark it up a little more, it's going to be right in that sweet spot where if you can get people to move up to that grade of glass, you make a better profit. And this is where you can look at it and tell somebody that, okay, for let's say conservation clear there, we've got at $37 for 54 United inches. And if they just want to add in another $7, they're going to get a better grade of glass. Or even if it was UltraView and you're moving up to anti-reflective or whatever it is that you want them to move up to the next grade of glass, it makes it an easier step if the prices aren't quite so far apart. But then you can set that up to say, this is the one that I want them to go to. And then all you need to do is identify the difference between them. And then they can upgrade to that piece of glass. Glass markups. One of the things that I've noticed is that when we're pricing out the different types of glass, you could, if you wanted to, have the same markup for all of the different types of glass. However, one of the things that I would recommend is that you want to have a progression of your markups, the same as you do on the molding or on the mat board, because they are all different types of glass with different wholesale costs. And if you look at the bottom of the screen there, you could have the premium clear glass, which is, and this is the pricing for 40 by 60, $19.49, and mark it up 4.5 times and get the retail price of $87, and the profit you're going to make on that is $68. However, if you look at the museum glass, which is much more expensive, and you only mark that up 2 times, you're going to still make almost twice the amount of profit that you would on the premium clear glass. So you don't have to mark it up as much on the higher grade glass because you're still going to make a profit. And if you think of it as, I'm going to walk into the back room and I'm going to take a piece of glass and I'm going to cut it, and it doesn't matter which piece of glass you're cutting, you know, what you pick up, but depending on which one you pick up, that's telling you how much profit you're going to make when you cut that piece of glass. So you could be making $68, you could be making $130. The other difficulty is that if you decide that you want to have a really high markup on your museum glass, it could put it out of the spectrum where people can afford it, in which case they're not going to be making that choice, and you're not going to be making any profit at all. The markup is the one that affects the larger sizes of glass the most. So that's your 32 by 40, your 40 by 60, and that's the markup that makes that determination. The set price is the amount that's going to affect the smaller sizes of glass. So that's the 8 by 10, 9 by 12, 11 by 14. And if you look at the chart on there, you'll see the markups are starting high on the premium clear and going down to the museum glass, but the set price is the exact opposite. So the set price is a lower amount on the premium clear and a much higher amount on the museum glass. And one of the things that you could rationalize it as, the museum glass is much more expensive, and some of the museum glass is a little bit more difficult to handle, and the more you handle it, the more risk you have involved. And there's also the breakage risk as well, so that if you are handling this glass and you happen to break it, you're out $130 for that 40 by 60 piece. So you want to make sure that when you're pricing it out, you have that risk covered in your pricing as well. One of the things that I would recommend that you want to do before you even start to look at your glass pricing, FrameReady has a glazing usage report that you can print out. And you'll want to do this for a time range, maybe 6 months, maybe a year, at least more than just a week or a month, so that you can actually get this report, take a look at it and say, which types of glass am I using the most? Which sizes am I using the most? And then you can take a look at this information, and then when we get into the glass pricer, you're going to say, okay, this is the type of glass that I use the most. I want it to be my most profitable. You can also take a look at this report and say, if I'm using the Conservation Clear 24 by 36, and I am not ordering that size, and yet I had 84 sheets of it that I used, pieces, then I should be ordering that size. So it's going to give you a lot of information that's going to help you to make better decisions in ordering your glass and using the sizes that you have. And the instructions for that are the work order file. If you're in the work order file, go up to print documents at the top of the screen, or on the left-hand side of the screen, actually, there's a gray button that says print documents, and then you can click on the glazing usage, and that will do it for the found set. So you want to do a find for these items rather than just doing the entire database. So do a find for a date range, and then do a find for the incompletes, or you can do a find for the completes for a date range, whatever you want, but that's the information you're going to use. Now you'll notice that it tells you conservation clear 8 by 10, 11 by 14, 16 by 20. Those numbers are important, and I'm going to show you where those numbers came from. Okay, oh, so there's the should I be ordering this size? Okay, on your work order screen, right above the frame 1 field is where you're going to see some numbers in green. And this is the suggested glass size that would work best for this piece that you're framing. And it's pulling that information out of the default glazing sizes that's in your FrameReady program. And if you go to the work order file and you click on Perform at the top of the screen and go down to Setup Options, that's where you're going to see this list. Now in this list, if you only put in there the sizes you carry, if the only thing it says in that list is 32 by 40 and 40 by 60, then that's all it's ever going to suggest to you. So you want to have all the sizes that are available for the glass types that you carry in this list, because then it's going to give you that information to say, maybe you should be ordering this other size, or this is the size that's most popular in your shop, so you want to use that. So go back in there, customize that list, all right, before you run the glazing usage report, and that's going to help you out. So the question is now, what are we going to do with the glass pricer, and how do you set this up? Now that you've got all this information, you know what the glass is, you've got your price chart from the company that you work with, let's go back into FrameReady. And then what we're going to do is take a look at the different glass types that we have in this list. So I am in the price codes file right now, and I clicked on glazing, and I did a find specifically for these glass types. So I took the acrylics off the list for the moment, because these are the ones that I want to see. And if you're looking at them, the other screen that I showed you in that video, and we'll go back to it in a moment, we can click on any one of these. I'm going to be working with Conservation Clear today. So I'm going to click on the name Conservation Clear, which is going to take me to the form view. And over here on the left-hand side of the screen, because I have those 7 records in the list, when I go to the price comparison screen, it's going to compare those 7 records for me. And that's where it shows me the 18 United Inches, 36, 54, 70. There we go. So sorry, I found where that was coming from and got rid of it. Okay, so we're back on here. This is the price comparison screen. You can actually make changes right on this screen, so that if you did want to change the cost here, or if you were just pricing by a markup and set price, you can make those adjustments, or change the code table as well. Each of these is a pop-up so that you can change the number that's on there. If you are pricing by the code table, which is what I recommend, even if you make a change to this number here, it's not going to affect the pricing on the right-hand side. You'll see that it didn't make any change at all. And that's because a code table will take precedence over the markup and the set price. So let's go back to the Conservation Clear glass. So step number 1 is that we want to go over to the glass pricing tab, the glazing pricing tab, and directly underneath it is the glass pricer. This is a calculator. It's not going to store the information for you, so anything we put in here is going to be removed later on. So I'm going to click on the glass pricer. And if it does have information in here, it's because it's information that you were possibly using for another code table that you created. So I'm going to remove that information to say I don't need this. And then what I want to do is I want to go in and choose the glass type that I'm going to base the pricing on. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen here that we have a number of different sizes And I'm just going to move that over for a moment so that I can see them as well. If you want to base it on the 32 by 40, you could, or the 40 by 60, it's up to you. My recommendation is that there are a number of box prices that are all the same. So I want to use that, and I'm going to start out with the 32 by 40 as the X and Y, and the box price here is $79.92. Okay, and then the number of lights that are in that box, there are 6 of them. So I'm going to put 6 in there. And now the markup, and that's always the tricky part. Markups are going to vary depending on where you're located. If you're in San Francisco or out on the West Coast or in a high-end neighborhood, you're going to want to have a little higher markup because your area can afford it. However, if you are, next to a discount store or you are competing on price, you're going to have a lower markup, because that's what your customers will expect. What you want to make sure here is that you're going to be profitable. And when we look at the markups, I'm going to go with mid-range markup on the conservation clear. So I'm going to choose a number of 3 as my markup to start. And because it's in the middle of the range for my glass, I'm not going to go down as low as an $8 set price, but I don't need a $30 or $40 set price for the museum glass. So I'm going to pick the number 15. And then over on the right-hand side, I've got 2 buttons here that I'm going to be using. The first one is that I'm going to build a new table. So it's going to create a whole new price chart for me. And there's my code table that I'm going to be able to use for my glass pricing. And it's calculated out based on all the sizes of the 5 by 7, 8 by 10, each of the different dimensions, based on what the box price is. There are 6 lights, and here is the light, the cost for one light of the 32 by 40. It breaks it down to the square inch, cost per square inch, and then we also have all the square inches on here as well. And then using that cost per square inch, it multiplies it by the number of square inches, multiplies the markup, adds on the set price, and that's how it creates the retail prices that you would want to use. Now, as I said before, if you look at this and you say that I think that the markup's too high or too low on the 32 by 40 or the larger sizes, and I'm just going to look at the 32 by 40 because that's the number that we're using up here in the top left corner, the 32 by 40. So I really want to focus on that to start with. If that's too low or too high, I'm going to adjust the markup. And if I want to bring it up, then I'm going to increase the markup. And I'm going to click the recalculate to recalculate the table for me. And you can see that it brought the markup or the retail price up on this. It didn't really affect the retail price for the 5 by 7 too much. And if I go back, you'll see that the 16 by 20 recalculate goes down to 16 by 10. So it changed this price 10 cents while it changed this one over $2. So that's why I'm saying the markup is going to affect the larger sizes the most. The set price is going to affect the smaller sizes the most. So that if I make a change here and I decide to bring this up $1 to 16, you're going to see the numbers here go from 16 to 17, but this one's only going to go from 57 to 58. So yes, everything does increase $1, but percentage-wise, it affects the retail price for the smaller sizes more than it affects them for the larger sizes. So if we decided that all the pricing looks great, I'm happy with where it is, the next thing that I want to do is I want to go over to the left-hand side of the screen and enter in, because you can change these just by clicking on the field, and I can enter in that the box price for the 40 by 60, based on the pricing that I have from the supplier that I use, is $72.80. And that is only for 2 lights. And so now it's recalculating the wholesale cost multiplied by the markup, the set price, and there's the retail price now based on what it actually costs for that light. Going down, if there isn't, oh, yep, there is a 48 by 68, so that's going to be $93.04. And again, there are 2 lights in that box, and it's calculated out the actual wholesale cost for that light multiplied by the markup plus the set price. And here's another tip, and that is that when you get to these larger sizes, even if you're a single person frame shop, if you have to move this by yourself, you're going to be moving much slower, you're going to be a lot more cautious, you've got a lot of techniques that you're going to be using to move that 48 by 68 piece of glass. If you have multiple people in your shop, you're going to have another person helping you. So again, this is where I may want to increase the set price on this to bring it up a little bit to accommodate for the extra labor that I'm going to have in moving this piece of glass. And if you wanted to increase it even more than that, be thinking that, okay, if there's some breakage, if I lose something here, it gets damaged while I'm moving it, then I've got myself covered. Over on the right-hand side, you can see the profit that you're making from selling that one piece of glass at that size. So if you decide that you want to change the markups, that's why I'm saying at the very start of it, make sure you know what your markups are, because if we decide to change the markups at this point in time now, and I click recalculate, it's going to undo the changes that I've made to the individual glass sizes over on the left-hand side of the screen. And then I'll need to put those back in. So that's why you want to make a decision right at the very start. When you're working with the markup and the set price, do that first before you start changing the glass sizes and the quantity per box on the left-hand side of the screen. And I am going to come back here and add in those little extras. All right, moving over to the left-hand side of the screen, this is where I want to do a little bit of cleanup now. This glass size is not available for this particular type of glass for the conservation clear from the supplier that I work with. So I'm going to remove that glass size because for anything above the 32 by 40, I have to use the 40 by 60. So I'm not going to give them a discount or a lower price for the extra waste that I have to remove, because that's the size of glass that I need to purchase. Now, moving up on the list, if I go through the rest of these and say that for the 26 by 32, looking over at the chart on the right-hand side, there are 9 lights in this box. So again, I want to change the numbers here because it's going to recalculate for me the actual cost per light for each one of these. And that's going to change. You'll notice, so this is 35.20, and then when I put it in, it goes up to 36. Because when you look at the cost per square inch, it actually costs more for this cost per square inch than it does for the regular calculated footage, saying that if I'm going to be using the 32 by 40, here's the square cost per square inch. And that's what it's using to calculate out the price on the ones that I don't actually order a box of those items. So it's still going to give me a calculated retail price that I can use. However, it may not be the exact amount, the same as if I was purchasing a box. So if you don't order any of these boxes, you don't need to put those light sizes in here if you don't want to enter them in. I'm doing it right now because it gives me a good idea of what sizes are available. So going back down to the 32 by 40, taking a look at the next size above this, it's a 30 by 40. That size is not available to purchase. If I was to have that size on my list, it means that I'm going to have 2 inches of scrap that I can't reuse, and I have the extra labor of cutting that. And I would give them a discount of almost $3. So the answer is no, I don't want to keep that on my list. So I'm going to use the teal button with the white X to remove that. And when I click on that, it's gone off the list. If I decided that I needed to put it back on, you'll see in the top right corner there's a button that says New Entry. So I could put that back on if I want to. Going back down to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that if I had something that was 30 by 36, it would go from the $49.70 up to the 56. So it's skipping that other size. I'm going to go back over to the left-hand side because this size is not available either. So I would cut off 4 inches off of this side, 2 inches off of this side, and that's not reusable scrap. So once again, I'm going to make the decision that I want to remove this size off of my list. So it's not available. So now we're up to the next size. I'm going to have 4 inches of scrap over here. I'm going to have 6 inches over here. So I'm going to remove that size as well. Even if I didn't order this next size, because it is available to order, but even if I didn't order this size, I would leave it on there simply because the 32 by 32 match, and then 26 from 40 is going to give me 14 inches of scrap that actually is reusable. And a lot of these smaller sizes of scrap I can use for the smaller sizes that are not available to purchase. So going through the list, if I decide to get, again, I'm going to have 6 inches of scrap on this one that's not reusable really, I'm going to take that one off the list. If I wanted to keep this one, and this is a unique one, so there's a 20 by 30 piece, you can't order that. But if I decided that I wanted to accommodate the price for half a sheet of glass, so half of 32 by 40 is 32 by 20, I could leave that on there and just change the dimension. So I could make my own dimensions up as well. I'm going to keep the rest of the sizes on here, going down to the 16 by 20. And if that's the smallest size that I order, now I need to go back in and say, okay, do I want to keep these other sizes on here? Again, 14 by 16, if I'm cutting it out of the 16 by 20, I've got 2 inches of scrap on each one. If, however, you are using a lot of glass and you know what glass sizes you have been using and what you've been cutting down, if you had a lot of those pieces where you had the 14 inches by a good length that were left over, you may choose to keep that on there. Or you may say, I don't need that size and I'm going to reduce my list a little further. And again, you can continue to go down. You may also decide that the smallest size I want to have on my list is the 8 by 10. I'm not going to have a price for a 5 by 7. So I'm going to remove that as well. Once we have the list completely customized, this is where we decide I'm ready to make a code table. I'm going to go over to the right-hand side of the screen, and over here I can click on the arrow that points downward to see the other tables that I've created. And if I wanted to write over top of a code table that I've already created, then I can select that code table from the list. And I've set this one up because that's one I'm going to delete later. So I'm going to select this code table, and that's the one that is going to be written over top of. The other thing that I want to do while I'm still looking at this Glass Pricer screen, because I mentioned to you that this is Glass Pricer, it's a calculator. This information is not going to be stored, but I want to be able to keep it. So if I'm on a Windows computer, I can go to a program called Snipping Tool, and that will give me the ability to capture this image. In a Mac, I can hold down the Shift key, the Command key, and press the number 4 once. And you'll see that I get the little crosshair so that I can come in here and I can actually copy the information for this. And actually, I'm just going to take right above the X and copy the information that I want to keep. And this is going to create a screen capture for me. And I'm going to hold on to that thought because I'm going to use it in just a moment. So I've identified the code table that I'm going to use, and I want to update that code table in my list with this new pricing structure going from $18.50 up to $171.60. So when I click on the code table update, you can see that it's updated the chart. There's my $18.50 going down to my $171.60 with all the exact sizes for the glass types that I use. The very last item that I want to put in here at the bottom is that 200 by 200, and I'm going to say it's $9,999 to catch somebody's attention. I can also identify the code table, and you could put in here that this is for conservation clear if you want, or you could say that this is a pricing chart that I had and I'm going to copy my pricing chart from someplace else. It's just some way for you to identify this code. And when you're creating your codes, if you were to type in the code number, I usually like to keep it as a short number, GL04, GL05, GL06, because the code is only ever used in this chart in here so that you can see it. It's the description that tells you what the type of glass is that you are going to apply this to or where it's being used. So don't try to make the code tables really long numbers or really difficult numbers because it's just going to be in the list for you. I also want to identify that this chart was created today, so I know when was the last time that I looked at this pricing. And you can click on the little number for today, or you can go right down to the bottom of this calendar and click on the word today, and it automatically puts in today's date. For some of you, if you go into your code tables, you may find that this date is 2016, 2017, it could be 2006, it could be quite old. You'll also notice that under items using this table, nobody is using this table. So I want to go to the Done button over on the right-hand side. And now for my conservation clear, instead of using the code table that I was using, I'm going to go into the glazing pricing, and I'm going to go down to the grade tab for code table. And in here, I'm going to select that new table that I created, the GL04DEL, and there it is. So it's now put in the pricing of $18.50 all the way up to $170, $160, and showing that if it goes over that size, uh, just even by an inch, it's going to change this so that it's $9,999. And that's really handy because if you're working with somebody and everything looks fine, maybe your largest size was 40 by 60. The minute you change the mat board margins and it now goes up to 41 by 60, it's going to change that price to $9,999. The second thing that I would want to do is up here at the top of the screen, I want to put in today's date to say this is the date that these prices became effective. So that if I am looking at a list view of all my glass, over on the right-hand side, I know when the last time was that I changed my glass prices. So it gives me a quick glance to if I'm looking at dates that say 2006 and I'm wondering, wow, when's the last time I really changed them? Because I never updated that price. Your molding, your mat board, and your fabric are the items that you can use the vendor updates to price. Everything else, mat design depends. We don't know which designs you have. You need to update those items yourself. The same with mounting, hardware. There's no reason for us to put in the hardware items from every single supplier that you download because you would have wire in there, at least 20 times. So we only want to have the items that you really use in here. Let's go back to Conservation Clear Glass. When I click on Conservation Clear Glass, I want to be able to save that chart that I created. And over on the right-hand side is an image tab. Nobody expects you to put an image of glass in here. That would be a waste of time. But what you can do is put that chart in here so that if I wanted to replace this photo with one from the screenshot that I took, I can scroll down and find that screenshot that I made, and I'm going to insert that in here. And now that has the pricing that I've been using. So I can go back over to the left-hand side and say my 40 by 60 price was $36.40. My markup for this is 3 times, not 3.4. My set price for this is 16. All right, and it just gives me that little bit of an opportunity to see if there's a pattern that's forming on this. If I've changed prices, down in the note field, I like to keep track of that so that as history goes by, I know exactly what the prices were or the costs were that I had. And if this was the cost per box, the cost per box hasn't changed. This tells me that information. And then if I'm looking at a pattern forming here as well, that maybe for some reason I noticed that the glass pricing was too expensive. I was getting too many walk away, people weren't purchasing, then I would reduce it. Or I'm noticing that the retail price was too low on my smaller sizes and noting from the glass usage report, those are the sizes that I use the most. So I wanted to bring the price up for them to make it more profitable. So now if we go back to glazing pricing tab, I can go back to the the price comparison screen, and you'll see that I've modified that price in there. So I may need to modify other ones as well. And this is where I can start taking a look at the comparison screen. So you'll notice that this is now higher than this one. So I may need to go into the reflection control and make a change here as well. And this is where I was saying that you would notice a pattern forming in this. And when you notice these anomalies, that's when you're thinking, I need to do something with this particular glass type, or I need to change the other ones that are around it. So that's basically the information that I wanted to be able to share with you today to show you how to use the glass pricing tab, the glass pricer feature. I'm sure that some of you may have some questions. Chrissy, did you notice any questions that anybody had? No. Okay, great. I am going to be posting this onto the FrameReady Framers Facebook page so that anybody who wants to view it afterwards can do that. And if you want to view it a few times to glean all the information out of this, you can. But I'm really hoping that this is going to help people be more profitable with your glass pricing and set it up so that it's custom to your frame shop and to your business. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm going to stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.